Good morning and welcome to this morning's Q&A call. If you do have any subjects that you want me to cover, please drop it into the chat box and I will answer your questions from there. Again, this call is led by you guys out in the field. I do not have an agenda. So anything that you do want covered, please let me know in the chat box, or you can raise your hand as well if you have a longer one and you don't want to type it in. So still waiting. There has been no questions. If you do have a question, please place it down in the chat box. So if you are brand new, what do I do? Eric, first let me ask, what company are you with? That's the first question, and I'm asking this to see if you have integrations. So Michelle, I do have some, you do have some integrations. We'll go through a couple of those. Okay, so you are all by yourself. So first thing you need to do is set up your settings. I have a great playlist that I'm going to go through and provide to everyone. And this playlist is for anyone who is brand new or anyone who wants to learn a new strategy. You can go into this playlist. I love this playlist because it's short and to the point. Everything in here, there's no fluff. But once you go into this playlist, and I'm going to place it in the chat box for you, and you can click on it. My suggestion is to start at the top and work your way down. This one here with Dave and I, how to create a total cost analysis faster. You can skip that one because it's pretty much the other ones in a longer video. But if you start with the top one, setting up your settings, this one's going to have you add your photo, make sure your logo is in there, all of that. Then from there, your Start Now button, it talks about that Start Now button in there. And then fee templates, mortgage coaches based off of templates. If you can conquer the use of templates, you will have won the mortgage coach war. So setting up those templates is the most essential thing that you can possibly do for yourself. It's a huge time saver. And depending on how your system is set up, being all by yourself, you're going to rely so much on these templates. The product templates as well is the second one. So once you set up your fee templates, you'll go in and you'll set up your product templates. And then the last one I would recommend for you, Eric, is strategy templates, because you have no integrations. You're by yourself. Strategy templates are a must. And basically, here's how they are. They're like nesting dolls, the little Russian dolls that fit inside each other. This is the smallest doll. It's going to have all of your fees in it that do not include your prepaid days of interest, hazard insurance, property tax, reserve months. All your other fees will be tucked into here. Second one is going to have anything that stays stagnant from product to product. So how many months it is, if it has a funding fee or an MI, the fees that are associated with it, prepaid days of interest, if you can put in factors for hazard insurance and property tax and estimates for your months. It's basically going to have everything, so you could only have to put in your interest rate each time. So it's how detailed you want to put it and how comfortable you are with giving an estimate versus having exact numbers. A lot of loan officers get hung up with that exact number, but you need to remember this is like a loan estimate. It is only an estimate until you are in actual contract. The one thing that I do caution you is if you're adding in that lender credit during that beginning, remember you have to honor that lender credit throughout the process. So many times I suggest not putting that lender credit in the presentation, but actually talking to the lender credit and saying, you know, you may qualify for this much in lender credit, which would reduce your cost by this much. And then the last one on that strategy template, it is multiple product templates that you normally always compare. Yes, this link will take you to all of this list. So the products that you compare, let's say you're doing an FHA versus a 5% conventional, and that's 60% of the initial purchases that you're showing in the beginning. You want to make sure and have a template that is that FHA versus conventional. MI options, you're showing the difference in MI options and how putting a little less down isn't going to have a huge impact right now because MI is pretty low. So you'll be able to show that client how to do that. Again, a strategy template showing those different percents down. The limit on the strategy template is really based on what you show most frequent. If you only do a buy up using equity once a year, you don't need a strategy template for that. You're going to build it from scratch. It's not going to take you a whole lot longer, but these are the ones that you do all the time. Once you have those 3 in place, you're ready to go. And honestly, learning that strategy template and how to leverage it, you're going to be pushing out total cost analysis in 5 minutes or less. This is that key to that 5-minute or less presentation, especially not having any integrations. So it does have several others in here, creating a refinance. Now, the one I do want to point out, because I don't talk to it as much in here, is if you're doing a first and a second, or if you're putting a HELOC in at the very bottom of the list. I did add that HELOC loan in there because I am seeing it leveraged a little bit more in the market now. So HELOC is down there at the bottom for you. Any questions on this list? Okay, let me show you, and we're going to go a little bit into strategy templates. So when you go into your account, you might already have a strategy template tab in there. If you do and you're brand new, those are just some suggested templates. However, they don't have your closing costs in it. So you will need to add your closing costs into the presentation. When you click on a strategy template, you will not go into the strategy template and change anything unless you click on edit template. Clicking on edit template is going to allow you to make those edits. If you're starting a new client, you click on that copy to new client. You will not change anything in the original template. So let's say I need to go into this MI options and I need to update it with my fees. I can click on edit template. It will take me into the template. Now, anything I make in here, anything I do in here, it's going to change it on that template permanently. So I would go and I would add, these are some suggested ads. In the contact information, add your new home. These are purchase templates. A lot of times you won't have an address. Placing in your new home is a warm, friendly thing for your client to make them think that this is the next step, not this is a probability, but this is going to happen. And then if you only produce in one state or you mostly produce in one state, add that state. It's all about removing keystrokes for yourself. So later on when you build out that strategy template, you have less keystrokes to place in there. So that's the only thing I'm going to go into here in that contact information, the top section and the bottom section. They do not pull into the presentation. This is the only one that shows up in the TCA. Then I'm going to go down and I am going to start with my first product. So whatever that first product is, I'm going to skip all of this information and go right to my first product. I'm skipping it because this information, the goals is already in there if it's a template pre-made. If it's not a template pre-made, I'm going to come in here. If it's a purchase, I'm going to click on purchase. Assumptions and affordability have only to do with the client. We're not working with the client right now. We're just updating our strategy template. Clicking on my upfront MI, I can now go in here and update any information that I need. So if I wanted a different down payment amount, I could change my down payment amount. Clicking on my next button, I'm going to go into my closing cost details and I'm going to add any of my closing cost. So I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to put that it's a conventional purchase. Now, those of you who have are with an enterprise, you might have closing corp, at which point you only have your company's fees, credit card and appraisal fees in here, and you have a closing corp button down here. this is going to pull in your third-party fees. So at this point, I would go in, add in a zip code, click on my next button, and I would pull in third-party fees over. Once I pulled those third-party fees in, I would save it with those third-party fees. Those fees I would pull in based on an average loan price. So that's how I would pull it in, but you would have to put in the loan price first and then pull it over. Or you can just place this in here and then just click your closing court button every time you run a strategy template. So I'm going to go back to having some fees in there. Applying that to the template. Now you'll see I have APR, non-APR fees in here. I have my prepaid days of interest already in here. Single premium. If I wanted to add that single premium based on an estimate, I can put an estimate in here. I can change it anytime that I'm actually building it out for the client. So that's not a problem. And then over here, I have my hazard insurance and property taxes percentages. And I have in 2 months plus a full year premium, and then 3 months here. Now, when I build out my second product, I don't have to build it from scratch. I can always copy my first product and start building it from my first product. So I already have this product in there, monthly MI. I'm just going to go in and add those same closing costs that I have for the other one. And if I did adjust anything, I want it all the same. So it is a template with all of the same fees in there. And I would go in and I would do my third one. I have a split MI. And again, I could add factors in for that split MI if I wanted to, or I can leave them blank. So now I have fees in here and I have everything I need except for my MI factors. Last thing I'm going to set up is my analysis page based on how I want it and what I want to show. So when I'm ready to use this one now, we'll see how easy it is. I'm going to click on my strategy templates. I'm going to click on my MI options, and this time I'm going to copy to a new client. So anything I place in here will not change or adjust my template. This is going to be a straight new client. So Michelle, I'll use you as my client, placing in my client's name, placing in my client's phone number. Now remember, every time my client looks at this, I am going to get an email notification. Now, anyone who is older on here, those email notifications used to be sent when the client closed the presentation. We have now changed it so when the client opens the presentation, that is when you are alerted. So that was a request by a large number of lenders. So we listened to you guys, and now when the client clicks on it, it will open and send you an email saying client is in the total cost analysis. That phone number will be on it. If you place that phone number here, open those up on your phones and you can simply touch them from there. Last thing, presentation. Here's a little secret that I've been adding. When do I plan on closing this loan? So I'm going to put July 2020. I'm going to close the loan. If I want to go deeper into this spot, I can go ahead and add in the information here based on where in Colorado they're going to be. If I knew a zip code, I'd place in the zip code. My goals I can skip. My assumptions, the only thing I need to place in here is how much they qualify for. I can skip the affordability unless I want the debt to income ratio. I don't need to go into there. And going right to my upfront MI, all I need to add in my upfront MI is my interest rate. And if I want to adjust my upfront MI, I could. Let's say they have better credit than the average person. Then this is all filled out for me. I'm going to my next product. Again, the only things I need to place in here is my interest rate and my monthly MI factor. So you can see, because I know the screens, I've worked with it a little bit, it does become faster, and I can come in here and quickly adjust the things that I know need to be adjusted. The last one's my split MI. I can come in, add in the interest rate, and then I can add my upfront MI, and I can add my monthly MI. Now I have a complete presentation for my client. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into presentation, scroll all the way down to click on preview, add in a quote date. Protect yourself, make sure you're adding in that quote date, and I'm just going to click that generate shared link. Here's where I'll add my video. And you can see, even though I went in and I talked through it, I still did that in right there at around 5 minutes, and I'm talking through it and adding things in there that you guys wouldn't need. In the web browser, that's going to open up my camera, and here from my camera, I would simply start my recording, let them know, Michelle, this is those MI options, here's what I'm suggesting, look at this and see which one's going to be best for you. Once I click my X off, I can upload that video. It will tell me it is uploading. It will tell me it is complete with uploading. Then I have my highlighting to do. So highlighting, she's going to be payment driven or cash to close. I'm going to say she's cash to close driven. I'm going to highlight cash to close. In the more information, this is an MI option loan, so I'm going to highlight that monthly MI. Closing cost, I'm going to highlight my upfront MI. Remember, this is bulk. If they want the total details, they're in here, all broke out for them. And these two, the most expensive is the 0. So in this case, both cases, the monthly MI is going to cost them most. The upfront MI is going to save them the most money. That split MI is a little cheaper than the monthly MI, but not a big difference. Clicking into the more information, they're going to see all I'm comparing is those total payments. That's all I'm comparing here. In that savings over 60 months, I am comparing the actual cost of the loan. That is to include interest in MI plus closing cost. The principal is not taken into consideration because that's going to build them equity. So just the unrecoverable cost that the client will pay, it's the true cost of home ownership in that window. And finally, which one are they going to pay the most interest in MI on? They're going to pay it on the front. It is not recording me as I talk through this, Michelle. It only records in that little window here. It only records my actual photo and this window. So it does not record the whole background. There are some loan officers that record the whole background using Bonbon, using their Zoom account, WebEx. So any type of software that you have that record, if you do want to record the whole background. Highlighting, you just click on the row to highlight the whole row, click on the column to highlight the whole column, or you click individual cells, and I'm simply doing a mouse click. So in this case, the upfront option is going to be the best option for my client. Now, let's say my client doesn't plan on staying in the home for 60 months. My client's only going to stay in the home. They're expecting 3 years. I can go in here while they're in the presentation, change it over to 3 years in that short-term time frame, even change this one to 3 years so they both match. But in order for me to trigger it, clicking that next button triggers it to change in the presentation. And you'll see it then changes right here to 36 months. The client can be in the presentation while you make changes. This is for when I'm screen sharing. So if I'm sharing it, I can make those changes. Same with the highlighting. If I go in here, we're going to open it as if I was sending it to a client, clicking that share button. I'm going to copy this and place it in a new window. So here I am sharing it with the client. The client goes into the presentation. First, they have to accept the disclosure. Then they have the video that they will watch the video. And then they're in the presentation just like you are. This is the client. I know it's the client because they have a Start Now button up here. They do not have a viewers button. I show that there is one viewer in the presentation. If you want to click on the link, I placed it in the chat box where you can click on it yourself to see how it's done. And then once I'm in here, the very first thing I always suggest is to go up here and to actually clear out all your highlights. It's going to clear on your screen of your client as well. Now when I go back here, let's say the first thing we want to talk about is those MI options. I'm going to go into the more information so I can talk about monthly MI. On my client screen, they're going to have it populate and they'll have that monthly MI highlighted as well. So then I can talk about that monthly MI. There's no monthly MI on that upfront MI. The monthly one just has that, but that split MI has both an upfront factor and the monthly factor. Then I can go in to talk about what is that monthly factor. Again, driving the presentation for my client so they can really see what I'm talking about as I go through it. What you have to remember is it's based on internet speed. So if you are in a more rural area with slower internet, or even, my son's a gamer, I normally have super fast internet, and I can't show this because it changes so fast when I'm going one to the other, but because of everything going on and so many people at home, you know, it's taking my computer a little longer, even in my own household. So make sure you are gauging how long it's taking to go from one screen to the other with your client by simply, in the very beginning, let them know, hey, I cleared out all the highlights. Let me know when those highlights are gone on your screen. Client can then be on there and they can go, okay, my highlights are gone. So you know, in this case, not a huge difference in time, but if you're in an area where your client might not have great internet, it might take a little bit more time for them to be able to see those changes. Any questions on that MC Live? Nope, so once I'm done, I'm ready. I have it all set up, clicking on that share button, clicking on the little envelope to be able to push that link into an email, or just copying this if you have pre-made emails, going into your email and just uploading it into that email. I'm going to show you guys how I have my email set up because it is a little bit different than what other people do. And a lot of loan officers like it this way. So when I go into my email, I would place in their information, but in my signatures is where I house my templates. And I house it here because it's just so easy to get to here. I just click on my signatures. I can go in there, click on here, and then I can place in anything I need to fill in. So click here to view your total cost analysis. I can highlight it, set up a hyperlink in there by quickly adding that address. There's a hyperlink. If I want to add a photo, I could do a screenshot, pull over a photo in here, but I'm not having to find or dig through to find the templates. It's just right there under my signatures. There is no limit to how much information you can put into your signatures. So I include full emails when I do that signature. So that's just a little quick trick that you guys can use. Any questions before I click off of here? Any questions on a section you want me to explain in the total cost analysis? And again, it's a small enough group. You can raise your hand if you do have a question. I can unmute you. Looks like we are all good there. Is there any strategies you want to see or any other questions you want? Okay, so that's a great one as well. So brand new, you want a intro call done. We don't actually do a welcome call. You have to come in and sign up for a training. If you click into any of those sample clients, on the right-hand side, there's a toolbox. The bottom of this toolbox, there are calls down here, and those calls were actually included. Did you get a welcome email? Because all the information is in there with that welcome email. Okay, so in that welcome email, there is an intro to mortgage coach class in there. And that is our welcome call, is that intro class. It is held every Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time by Robert. But you can also come in here. Let's say you can't do it the 22nd, but you want to do it on the 29th. Clicking on there, going right here, it will take you right to that welcome email. Then you can come in here and sign up by clicking on there. So easy to sign up. Recommend, if you haven't taken an intro class, this is a great place to start, is with that intro class with Robert. He's a little slower paced than I am, so it is really a great class for you to go into. We actually have Scriptapalooza, and Michelle, I'm going to come back to yours really quick. If you come into the help button, and I'm going to type in script, there is Scriptapalooza down here. Click on that Scriptapalooza. And this one's actually the old one. I'm going to get you the new one. I'm going to go into Dave's LinkedIn. If you are not a friend with Dave in LinkedIn, I do suggest jumping into LinkedIn and friending him. And the reason why is that he does a lot of his calls. He'll go in and he'll make an article. So if you're a reader, instead of going in and wanting to watch the videos all the time, if you would rather read and skim through it, he has his articles in here. And where is his articles at? They move things around. I think it might be under activity, articles. Scriptapalooza 2020. I'm going to give everyone the link to this. This actually breaks down a lot of the scripting that you can use with Mortgage Coach. So that is in the chat box as well. The great thing is it'll have the question, and then it'll have samples underneath it. Another question, some samples underneath it. So if you want to go to the video, you can click on the blue underneath it. It will take you into the video exactly where that top producer talks about how they addresses it. So it is easy to navigate through here and see exactly what you want. Here's a thank you email and script. I think this is actually, this is a great script. If you're not using this thank you script at the end of every single transaction, then you're losing clients. Jeremy, actually, I was watching one of the videos, and Jeremy's like, I'm going to try it right now when we're in the call. And he sent this over to a client. And by the time the call was done, the client had already emailed him back with, you know, a couple of people to contact with that, and gave him a couple of names saying these might be a good contact with you. So this is a great script to make sure you're using with every client. It's not, you know, that whole conversation, hey, who do you know that I can work with next kind of person. It's that I really like you, and I really want to do business with people just like you. And normally people like you have friends who are just like you. So why don't you give me, it's just a different perspective in the mindset. So much of sales is mindset driven, and you've got to change the way that things are being done. So make sure you're using this simple little script here. But yeah, go through there. There's a ton of scripting in there. So Michelle asked me to show Seller Buydown. So there's two ways you can do, absolutely. There is two ways you can do a Seller Buydown. The first way is, Michelle, if you already have a client in there and you've been working with them, you've already ran that TCA, let's say that you've decided you want to do that upfront MI, we found a house. That house actually is a little bit too much money for your debt to income ratio. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to make an offer, but I'm going to make an offer with the seller buy down. So I went to, if you notice, I went to where it says presentation. That is where you will find the seller buy down tab. Clicking on that seller buy down tab, now I have to choose the product I want to do the seller buy down with. So I'm going to do upfront MI and clicking on next. Now, here's where you've got to go through your negotiations. So let's say we found this house, they had just lowered it $10,000 on the market. I'm going to come back in, I'm going to offer them full price. But that $10,000 that they have, I'm going to place right here. I'm going to offer them full price, but I'm going to say I need the seller to pay 1.5 points, and that is going to decrease my interest rate for my borrower 0.675%. So now I can see here is where my interest rate started, 3.125. They're paying 0.5 point to take it down, 0.675, and their new interest rate for my borrower is 2.45. Those are the only three that are required for you to put in. So what was the original decrease of the home price? How many points do you want the seller to pay? And how is it going to change the interest rate? Once I place those in there, I can just scroll to the bottom and click on next. Again, add your quote date, and I'm just going to click on preview. So this is a great presentation to show realtors. If you see a realtor that is always decreasing the price of a home that sits on the market, come teach them a different strategy. Teach them how to be able to keep more money in their pocket, in your pocket, keep the equity in the home so it's not decreasing the equity for everyone in the neighborhood. And the seller is actually keeping more money in their pocket. So the first one is showing them purchase as is. So they purchased it as is with no decrease in price. It's the $350. Now the realtor is talking about lowering it $10,000. How's that going to affect the borrower? The borrower is only going to save $54 a month. So that $10,000 does not have a huge impact on that actual monthly savings for the borrower, but it does have an impact on how much the seller is going to make. It is going to have a small impact on commission. So that's the one where we're like, this is not the best choice. Instead, let's leave it at that $350, but let's suggest that the seller, instead of $10,000, they only come out of pocket right at $5,000. That's what's coming out of pocket for them. And we're going to lower the interest rate for the clients. That's what we're paying for. And that is going to save the client almost $120 per month. So that's what's going to save the client, is just by decreasing the interest rate. And it costs less to decrease the interest rate than it does cost to reduce the price to get the monthly savings. The last one is going to show how much do I have to decrease my price in order to get the same monthly savings. So in order for me to get the same monthly savings, I have to actually decrease my price almost $30,000, 3 times the amount that I was going to decrease it in the beginning. So this is a great one to show any realtor in your market that is decreasing home prices, because it's going to save for everyone. Now, of course, it still has to appraise at that same value. You know, all the other rules still apply, but it is an opportunity for you to get a client in the door, especially if it's a client that is struggling with their debt to income ratio based on the home prices in the area. Go in and look for just the homes that have price reductions. And once you go in and look at the homes that have price reductions, you can come back in and offer that full price again, but offer for them to pay for the reduction in the rates. Does anyone on here know if there is a limit on the seller can pay down? And I want to say yes, but I don't know what it is. Does anyone know how much the max amount a seller can pay down? It's a percentage of the loan, I'm pretty sure. 3% is what Gerardo thinks. And I was thinking it's 3 or 5. But there is a limit on that, Michelle. I would check, and I don't even know if it's, yeah, I don't even know if it's based on, Gerardo says 6% for FHA. So fabulous tool. Like, this is such an amazing tool. Now, if you don't want to show the whole thing, you can build in a seller buy down as a product. So if I wanted to build in seller buy down in here, I'm going to start with new client, and we'll use Gerardo. And I would, again, place in the phone number, just get into good habits of placing in the information you need. And I'm going to place in purchase August 2020. I'm going to just go, I'm going to skip contact and go right to the goals. My goal is to purchase a new home. I'm going to skip my assumptions and I'm going to go right to product 1. Actually, I forgot. I do have to put in the assumptions how much they qualify for. We're going to use 3,500. So I'm not sure either if it is included in the max seller contribution. I think it is. So because it is a seller contribution, I think it's part of that max seller contribution. So the first product I'm going to do is I'm going to make this my offer. So I found a home on the market. The home has been, actually, let's go find a home. This is what I would do, and this is what I teach my clients that I coach. You go into Zillow, and I'm going to find a home in my area for sale. And I want to actually go into the more information, scrolling down to the bottom. Did they take it off? I haven't used Zillow for a while, so it looks like they took it off. They used to have on there if it had a price reduction. Let's look at Redfin. So I'm going to go into my filters. And I'm pretty sure Redfin has it in there. Bass listing. Price reduction. That's the only thing I want to see. I have one home in here with a price reduction. So on this price reduction, when I scroll down, it's going to tell me how much they reduced the price. So, and it doesn't look like they really reduced the price. $469, what's it at now? They didn't, but let's say there's a $20,000, it was $669, and now it's $469. I would go in here, and I'm going to start it off, assumptions, $669. Then I'm going to go into my offer. They're asking $649 now on it. So I'm going to come in on that purchase price, and I can even offer a little bit less because they're asking $649 now. I can come in and say, let's ask for $660. My client, I'm going to say they have 20% down just because it's easy. And I'm going to put in the interest rate that it would be based on a seller buy down. So seller buy down interest rate. Actually, let's do no seller buy down interest rate to start with. I'm going to say 3.5 without the seller buy down. It's a 360 for 30-year. Dropping in my closing costs. Dropping in my prepaid days. And dropping in my hazard insurance and property tax and my reserve months. So I put in just the minimal information that I needed. Now I'm going to add a second product, and I'm going to put offer with seller buy down. I'm going to copy my first product. And now I'm going to come in and add that seller buy down. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the interest rate. So I'm going to say the interest rate goes to 3%. And then next, in the closing cost details, there is a field called contribution. I am going to add the seller contribution. And I'm going to say they're going to ask for 1.25 points paid by the seller and apply it to the loan. Now you can clearly show here the client has to pay $3,250 or $250. Here's $3,106, and the difference in the cash to close. So you can show your client, if your client, the original offer, hey, the DTI is out of whack, you can't afford this home, let's ask for a seller buy down of 1.25 points, and now your DTI is intact. So you're able to show your client that, and then when you go in and you make that offer, you're offering more than what they're asking for now. Now they're asking for $649, you're offering $660, but your client can get into the home. Does that make sense, or does anyone have questions on that? But your trigger is to go find those homes. If you have any client that is, you know, right there on the edge of debt to income ratio, go find the home that is a little bit more than what they can afford, but get them into that home that's a little bit more. You're welcome. Any other questions? We have about 15 minutes left. Or any other strategies, anything that you've dived into Mortgage Coach and you're like, don't understand why I would use that or what I would use it for, that's what I'm here for. So once I send a TCA to the client, if I click review, I get alerted as if the client is viewing it. Is there any way to change that? No. When you send a client to the client or send a TCA to the client, you, Gerardo, shouldn't be clicking on that link. You should only be going into here. And then from here, you can click up here in the upper right to preview and just preview it from there. You will not get an alert if you're viewing it yourself if you go into Mortgage Coach. It's when you click on the link that you provide the client that it's going to give you that alert. So you can't change that. You can turn the alerts off if you don't want to see the alerts at all. And in order to turn alerts off, which I wouldn't suggest, but if you want, you can go into that go into that presentation, preview, this little button here, notify me when the report is viewed. If you don't want any notifications, just uncheck it. Eric, I would start with that link that I gave you, and I would start with an intro class. Once you have those, then you should be good to go. And it's in a way, I set up that training so it does go through step by step and building from one step to the next. So you're in here, on here, and you click the preview here, because you shouldn't be getting alerts if you're clicking from here. But you have to be logged into your mortgage coach. You should only be getting alerts if you're actually having someone open up using the link. So if someone's actually placing that link in there, that's when you should be getting the alerts. Yeah, you're using the client's link and not your link, and that's why you're getting them. So yep, that will make it so you don't get it, and that will make it so also you don't have false information. So you know how before I was showing everyone how I was placing in July 2020 in there? Let's say my manager wants to know how many loans now I plan on closing. If I click into my search all, I can actually come in here and where's it at? I'm just going to click on search. And then in the top of the search, there's a spot where I can filter clients. July 2020. Oh, that's not where I put it in. Presentation name. Might be this. Oh, friendly name. Here it is. July 2020. Click on search. It's not showing up any on mine. Let me play with that because I'm thinking it should work. I might need to go in and have my dev team change it so it doesn't have to recognize the whole presentation name. And I'll have my dev team change it for us. So that's what it is. So let me go in and talk to my dev team so they can change it so it only picks up certain words if it has July 2020 in there. But I've been working on this in order for us to be able to pull data really quick. So Karen, you gave me a link. Do you want me to click on that link? Okay. So I'm going to open up Karen's link. And she has some closing cost fee details. And Karen, if you raise your hand, that's going to bring you to the top of the list. If you have a mic, I will unmute you so you can talk to me versus typing everything in. If you want to unmute yourself.
Morning, Tina.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Half awake. First cup of coffee.
It's all good. So on which one, the 2.75?
Yes, I'm stumbling when I try to explain the fee details, the two separate boxes where I have that $7,000 credit, and I'm explaining each bucket, it's going to be covering this, 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 and breaking it down for the client. So if you can click on the fee detail and then help me to understand, the points, and the bar paid.
Okay.
How does those numbers?
So here down at the bottom, the points, is this your lender credit?
Correct.
Okay, so if I was explaining it to a client, I would go in and I would initially explain the bulk. So I would go through the bulk and say, okay, based on what I'm showing you, you're going to have $3,582. These are fees you can't shop for. They are my cost to you for the loan. On here, you also have non-APR cost of $137. Those are ones that you can shop for. And based on what you've already chosen, this is going to be the cost if they're already in process. You do have an upfront guaranteed fee because we're doing a government loan. So that's going to be another $3,000 there. And then your prepaid, these are going to go through, and I'll ask the client, you know how you have to have the account with your hazard insurance and property tax, and they're going to say yeah. Well, these prepaids, they're going to fill that back up because you're going to get some money back from there. But in order to offset all of this, I am giving you a lender credit, and that lender credit is the $7,881. Now, if you want, we can go through the individual fees, and that's when I would click on the fee detail and say, here is how those fees are broke down. You can see here's your hazard insurance reserves is 178, and I would just go through it. But a lot of times what I suggest is let the client ask the question. So if I clicked on this, I would say, okay, here's the fees. What questions do you have? Because then they're going to lead you into the direction that they want, and it's going to get you more comfortable, because honestly, there's nothing on here that as the loan officer, you don't know what that fee's for. It's just a matter of you explaining it to them in a way that they understand. But let's say they already understand what APR fees. I mean, these people have already closed a loan. This is a refinance. So a lot of these fees, they're going to understand. Maybe they don't understand. If you click on the fee details and they go in there, they're like, oh, well, right here it shows I'm getting back $137. How am I getting that money back? What's that money going for? So
Yes, I guess it's that lines that, you have the points, prepaid interest with the funding fee, and then that borrower paid. That's where I get hung up. It's like, how does it add from the column to the breakdown in that blue box below?
So in here, this is the total points. So that's the lender credit.
Okay.
Your prepaid interest, of course, is the extra 15 or 5 days that you have in there for prepaid interest on the loan, because of when we close the loan, you will have a few days of interest that will probably need to be paid. And this is going to cover that. Now, it may be more or less based on if we are able to close it on that exact same day. Here's your upfront fee. This is your funding fee because it is an URL. We do have that government funding fee that is required by the government because it's a VA loan. Now on the borrower page, you'll see I am covering more money than the fees actually cost you. So you have a small credit here towards your loan. And then the other ones you don't have, but lender paid and seller paid, those would be on there as well. So I would just let them know this is a credit that is above the closing cost. When you're working with closing cost, it is important to remember that any seller credit, any lender credit cannot be applied towards APR fees. That is a government law. So any fee that is above, or any money that is above all the other costs that does not include your APR cost, we actually go towards the loan versus going towards those costs, because the government says we can't cover APR cost. However, when you close the loan, indirectly it does end up being covered in the cost, but it is a little, I don't know how to say it. It's a law by the federal government, and when you disclose it, that's how you have to disclose it, that it's not going towards that APR fee. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So basically, if you click on that fee detail again, if you take that negative 7,100, am I minusing it? How did we end up with that $3,100
Yes.
at
So
the
that
bottom of the bar paid?
this money here, you would add up everything here, add up your prepaid days of interest and your upfront MI, subtract this from it, and that's where that money comes from.
Oh, okay. I always get hung up when I'm explaining it.
Yeah, but let them ask you the questions, because they might not have a question about it, and you might be over explaining to them into a point where you confuse the client,
Correct.
and you don't
That's
want to
what
confuse the client. So let them ask the questions and guide you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tina.
You're welcome. I'm going to put you back on mute just so there's no feedback. And Yes, so what you do is you send the client the link, and this is not the link. This is the actual presentation, but you would send the client the link, then the client can open it up and you guys can look and go through it together if you're on the phone. So you can drive through the presentation with the client on the phone with you, or you can email them the link and then call them up and say, hey, I sent you the link, go into the link, and either call me when you're in the link, or I will call you later on 6 p.m. tonight. But always set a time. This is another time saver. Always set a time that you're going to talk to them next. Don't leave it up to the client to call you and set an appointment. Set an appointment and just do the presumed appointment. If you're calling and leaving them a message, hey, I saw that you looked at the presentation. I'm trying to get in touch with you. I can't reach you now, but I'm going to call you back at 5:30 tonight. If that's not a good time, text or call me a better time to reach you. You're going to waste so much less time doing that, and then you're not going to play tag with them versus you just going and calling them at any given time, or when they're in the presentation, you can call them as well because you know that they're already looking at the presentation when you get that alert. So you can call it, and it can be a happy coincidence. Hey, just calling to check in with you. Was wondering if you've had time to open up the total cost analysis and look at it. Client's going to be like, oh, wow, that's crazy. I just opened it up. But if that's your approach, don't use it every time the client jumps into the presentation, because then it's going to get creepy, and we don't want to get creepy on our clients. So do it one time and then don't do it again, because we don't want it to look creepy. The other thing is, some of the loan officers are straight up. When you jump into the presentation, I can see you jump into the presentation, or they'll call them and say, hey, I just noticed that you hopped into the presentation. Do you want to go through it together right now? Is this a good time? Or is it better if I call you tonight at 5:30? So just make sure that you're not coming off stalkerish and creepy when you're going into that presentation. So looks like we are about time's up. Any last questions that would be a fast question? If not, feel free to hop off the call. I'm going to close the call out. I did record it, so if you want a copy of the recording, please email me, tina@mortgagecoach.com. I never remember to send it out, so those emails help me remember and let me know who does want a copy of it. Otherwise, thank you guys. Have a fabulous weekend. I appreciate your time. You're welcome. Have a great day. Bye-bye.